Right, awesome. I think we are ready to go. Again, thanks everyone for attending tonight. We really appreciate you all taking time out of your busy schedule to hear what we have to say about post-secondary planning and helping your students be prepared for after they graduate from Sun Valley. I'm going to repeat myself. Please go ahead and use the Q&A function. If you have a question, drop that in the Q&A. And again, we are recording this presentation so that you can come back to that when necessary. So ultimately, our goal for tonight is to give you an overview of where to start when it comes to post-secondary planning. That's if you haven't already started. So whatever those post-secondary goals may be, we want to make sure that you have all of the tools in your toolbox to reach those goals. We have 1 hour jam-packed with information for you, and our goal is to stay within that hour. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take a moment to go over what we're going to cover tonight. First, we're going to go over a brief overview of our district level graduation requirements, and then we're also going to talk about the Pennsylvania state requirements for graduation. We'll show you a sample transcript, so you'll see what that looks like. From there, we're going to cover timelines for juniors. So we're going to look at what should be happening for the spring season and also for the summer season. We're going to cover post-secondary institutions and career pathways, looking what those pathways are looking for, or those institutions are looking for in an applicant, and the different types of schools that are out there and available for your student. From there, we're going to get into standardized testing. We're going to do an intro to Naviance, at least for parents, it's an intro. Students have been exposed to this since 9th grade, so they should be familiar with Naviance. But we're going to give you an overview, a quick overview of Naviance, and also how to do a search, a college search, and finding the right fit. And from there, we're going to get into application types, including the Common App, scholarships, and senior guidelines. So with that said, first things first, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of who is who and who is here to support you and your students. We have a great counseling department at Sun Valley High School. We have 5 counselors. And we all have grade levels 9 through 12. So when students come up in 9th grade, we do follow them until they graduate. And we are also broken down by last name. So if your last name is within between A and DEF, you will be working with Miss Foster. Last names between DEG and HOL, you will be working with Mrs. M. Last names between HOM and MEL, you will have Miss Martin. Anyone between MEM through SA, you will have me. And finally, anyone between SC through Z, you'll have Miss Snyder. In addition, we have 2 wonderful administrative assistants who help us keep our office rolling strong, and that would be Mrs. Nicole Squirt and also Mrs. Elena Alboreto. So that is our fabulous counseling team. So we're going to start off with talking about our local school district graduation requirements. We do go over this every year, and even though tonight is all about post-secondary planning, before we can get to the post-secondary plan, we have to be able to walk across the stage of Sun Valley. So every year we cover the graduation requirements with parents and also students so that they are fully aware of what's required. There are requirements, there are 3 requirements overall to be able to graduate from a Pennsylvania school. First, we will discuss our local district requirements again. On your slide, you can see you need 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 3 credits of science, 3 credits of social studies. As a freshman, students should have had careers or windows on the world. Also, health is required. Typically, freshmen take that course. You will need 2 PE courses, both half credits, and the rest of the credits will come from electives. So overall, to graduate from Sun Valley High School, you need 23 credits. Next slide, we're going to talk about the 2 state requirements known as Pennsylvania Act 158 and CEW standards. So we've been talking about this a lot over the past few years, so hopefully this is not new to you, but we're going to take this time to talk about what these requirements are and what they look like in schools. So the Career Education and Work Standards, or CEW, was created to address career education for all students across all districts in Pennsylvania, and that would include kindergarten through 11th grade. These career education and work standards address 4 areas of knowledge, which include career awareness and preparation, career acquisition, also meaning getting a job, career retention and advancement, and finally, entrepreneurship. At the high school level, students must create at least 8 artifacts that represent these 4 bands of knowledge, which is typically done through their careers class when they are freshmen, along with core courses across the high school curriculum. So students typically will end 11th grade with 8, but at most they can earn up to about 15. So there are plenty of opportunities for students to earn these by the end of their junior year. If for whatever reason a student has not earned at least 8, the counseling department will remediate by pulling students during their lunch or after school to earn those required artifacts. On the next slide, we're going to talk about the Pennsylvania Act 158 mandate. This mandate began with the class of 2023, and since that cohort, students were required to pass their Keystone exams in algebra, literature, and biology. To earn proficiency on the Keystone, students must earn a score of 1,500 or higher. Although this is the quickest way, not necessarily the easiest, but the quickest way to meet the Act 158 mandate, there are several other pathways, as you can see on the screen, that you could meet this requirement. Proficient Keystone scores are considered Pathway 1. Pathway 2 is considered a composite pathway. The Keystone composite includes a combination score of all 3 Keystones, and this requires at least 1 proficient score and no scores that would fall below basic. So the composite would be a sum of all 3 of the students' scores, adding up to 4452 or higher. I know, it sounds like a lot, but we're here to support you in that realm. An example of this pathway would be a student earning a proficient score on literature and basic on biology and algebra, and the combination being 4452 or higher. Please note, a score of below basic on any Keystone will not count toward Pathway 2 or the composite. The other 3 pathways include CTE, or Career and Technical Education, Alternative Assessment, and Evidence-Based. For the CTE pathway, students who are enrolled in a DCTS program such as cosmetology, biomedical, automotive, they would meet this pathway if successful in their program. The CTE pathway only applies to those students who are enrolled in a career and technical program. Pathway 4 would be considered the alternative assessment, and the alternative assessment speaks to other assessments like the SAT or the ACT, even including the PSAT. It also includes acceptance to a 4-year college. So as you can see on the screen, there are score cutoffs for any alternative assessment aside from the acceptance to a 4-year school. And then finally, Pathway 5 is a little more involved and requires several pieces of evidence to meet the pathway. This is typically our last resort for students who are unable to meet any other pathway. So an example could be a student who receives an acceptance from a 2-year school, nonprofit like Delaware County Community College, possibly obtaining a licensure credential like CPR, and completing 10 or more hours of community service. So the combination of those 3 artifacts, as you can see on the right, you see the list there, that would fulfill Pathway 5. But as I mentioned before, that would be our last resort. Next, we're going to move into the transcript. This is what the Sun Valley High School transcript looks like. And this is considered an official high school record. So as you can see, the transcript includes information like courses taken, levels of those courses, the final grades that were received, the amount of credits that were received. Of course, the GPA is included there. All post-secondary options, including students going into the workforce, military branches, vocational schools, universities, etc., will more than likely require a transcript when students apply. As you can see, senior classes are listed. However, there are no grades. So the GPA on the top right includes final grades from 9th through 11th grade. And this is the GPA that will be reported on the transcript through the application process. Some universities may require first quarter or mid-year grades for seniors to make admissions decisions. So please be aware of that as well. And we do push out signups for students to request for us to send out first mark and quarter grades or mid-year grades. Next slide is a quick snapshot of the timeline for the rest of the school year. So juniors, you have a lot to do, so get ready. So everything listed here, we're going to get into more later in the presentation, and will be reinforced during our English class visits, which will be next year. But for now, though, right now through the spring semester, you want to make sure that you're keeping your grades up as high as possible, and applying the academic rigor that you would want to see, or what schools would want to see. Also, signing up for the SAT and ACT exams. We will cover those dates later in the presentation. Start researching schools. Our motto is to try to get a list of about 10 to 15 schools by the end of the school year, and then we can whittle that down once you enter your senior year. Please note, post-secondary visits are welcomed, so you do get 2 days excused from school to be able to visit a college campus, which is ideal because right now, going onto a college campus, you're really going to see what the buzz is, what it's really like when all of the other students are on campus. So this is a great time between now and the end of the school year to get onto a campus and kind of get a feel for what it's like on campus. We also have schools who visit us, and students are allowed to come and, speak with reps who come and visit our school as well. And you must sign up for those in Naviance. And you'll see that again later. Start thinking about your senior year schedule, right? We do not want you to slack off your senior year if you're looking to go to a 4-year college, especially. So be careful about your courses that you choose for your senior year. The final financial aid federal student aid estimator is also listed here. So I want to make sure that I'm clear. This is not the FAFSA. This is really just an estimator if you want to get an idea of what the government says you can pay for your student to attend college. So this is a great way to just get an idea of what that's going to look like when you do eventually fill out the FAFSA. And you can find that at studentaid.gov/aid estimator. Again, that's studentaid.gov/aid-estimator. Start brainstorming ideas for your college essays. So for us at Sun Valley, your English teachers in your junior year, at the end of the school year, will provide an assignment for you guys to actually start working on college essays. And so you'll get a grade for that for the class, but it also gives you a springboard to kind of work from. So when you're ready to start filling out your applications, you already have a shell of an essay that you can actually utilize for your application. So I appreciate the English teachers for doing that for sure. There is a student input form in Naviance. We're going to show you how to get to that in a minute. But this input form is important because the next bullet is about asking teachers for letters of recommendation. And so even though, teachers and us, we know you pretty well, sometimes you guys are doing things or your students are doing things outside of school that we have no idea is happening. And so the student input form really gives us a lot more information specific to each student to be able to write a quality letter of recommendation. So that really should be done before the end of the school year. And also a quick plug for the Mainline Regional College Fair, which will be held on May 21st. And we'll put this out too as we get closer to this date, May 21st from 6 to 8:30, and that will take place at Villanova University. And then over the summer, you want to make that productive as possible. Continue doing your college visits, continue whittling down your list of schools. Continue those visits, writing and revising your essays, starting your applications. The common application opens on the 1st of August, as do most applications. And then we will also offer a common application support day where students can sign up ahead of time to come and see us, and we can help them work through the common application. So parents, students, you have a lot to do between now and September. Well, actually, between now and November, there's a lot to do. But this at least gives you a start of things that you can focus on as you're working your way through the rest of your junior year. So with that said, I am going to toss it over to Ms. Foster, who is going to take us through information regarding different post-secondary options. Ms. Foster?
Thanks, Dr. James. Welcome, everyone. So as Dr. James mentioned, we're going to talk a little about different post-secondary options. We do understand that, we are here for everybody and not everybody is 4-year college bound. So we want to make sure that our kids leaving Sun Valley or as they are preparing to leave Sun Valley have all of the options on the table because we know that, yes, sometimes plan A always goes, smoothly, but we need backup plans as well. And understanding that our students are going to be, given some obstacles in life, and we want to make sure that they can bounce back accordingly and be prepared for all potential future paths. So with that said, all post-secondary opportunities are going to be looking at similar, let's say, items, meaning academic records. We want students to have a strong transcript. So what Dr. James had previously showed us, we want their attendance and discipline records to reflect a strong student. So we do understand that mistakes happen. Sometimes there are illnesses, there are sicknesses, things like that happen. But all of this information is going to be a key indicator to an admissions counselor, a future employer, things like that. Not just, oh, you made it to school on time, but is that speaking to reliability? Is that speaking to a skill that a student has moving forward in their adult life? Rigorous course curriculum, even through senior year. So, we did things a little bit different this year. So our students had just picked their courses for next year. And with that said, we hope that students continued on a rigorous curriculum or are going to be having conversations about all of the opportunities that Sun Valley, which are a lot this year or for next year, has to offer its students in terms of that challenging, rigorous curriculum. Some students might not be, as advanced in math, but if they can, excel in social studies and English, great. Let's capitalize on our strengths in that area. We want students to take their courses that are going to help them in their intended major. That is always helpful. We know that we don't offer every single potential course at Sun Valley, but we do certainly offer a lot of courses that students can explore in. We want students to be involved in extracurriculars and getting a little bit of volunteer or work experience to add to their resume. Again, it's not just about having a job, but it's about those soft skills that students can take in their future endeavors that, are helping them develop those skills. And additionally, we want an upward trend of grades. So we do understand that sometimes there's a bad marking period or something happens in life, but we want an upward trend of grades from freshman year through senior year, because we're hoping that they learn some skills outside of just the content that allows them to be successful. So lots to look at. Okay, so types of colleges and universities. We will, again, address all post-secondary paths, but we're going to start with four-year colleges and two-year colleges. So we have our state schools. We call them the PASHE or our state schools. There are 10 colleges. There are 14 campuses. In the recent years, a couple schools consolidated their names. So Commonwealth University was formerly made up of Bloomsburg, Mansfield, and Lock Haven. They have 3 different campuses, but they're under the same title of Commonwealth. These are typically cheaper schools for PA residents. They're state funded. There is a tuition discount, and usually the most affordable. These are a lot of our schools that come to mind in terms of Westchester, Shippensburg, as you can see from that little map up there. Those are some common schools that our students are applying to. And of course, they're across the state. So if our students are interested in looking at a state school, whether they want to stay nearby or go far away, they definitely have some opportunities there. State affiliated schools, we like to make sure that parents and students very well know the difference, because although they might have a state in their name, or we think of them as a resident beneficial school, the tuition dollars are definitely more expensive than a true state school. So the state affiliateds, we're looking at our Penn State, Temple, University of Pittsburgh, and Lincoln University. So again, there is some funding from the Commonwealth. However, those tuition dollars are not nearly as cheap or as reduced as the state schools. And they don't have to give as much money, or there is no, they don't have to award in-state residents as much as the state schools would. So we do want students to still look at those schools. However, if finances are a major component of where a student might end up, those 4 schools compared to our PASHE system might not be, a higher option. And lastly, we have private schools. Private schools, everyone gets a little afraid of, because we know that their initial price tag is much larger than our state schools or even our state affiliated schools. But with that said, because the funding does not come from the state itself, there are a lot more dollars that can be awarded to students in, a couple different arenas, mostly merit-based scholarships. If we are looking at any athletes in that Division I or Division II capability, there are potential athletic scholarships. But with the private school, again, that scholarship money can be awarded in different ways, which makes that tuition come down sometimes to a comparable state affiliated or state school. So we don't necessarily want students to shy away in the initial application phase just because of that larger price tag. But we want to make sure that we're, educating students and parents alike to make sure that they know that there are dollars that could be awarded, and that brings that tuition down to what may be more affordable to a family. And I don't want to be confuse anybody. The tuition dollars, that says the tuition cost is the same for all students. That means if you're a Pennsylvania student or a California student and you're looking at a Pennsylvania private school, the actual tuition will be the same. And again, those scholarships are awarded in different ways. So, again, if there are further questions, we can always answer that. But those are the three 4-year types of colleges. Lastly, we have community or trade schools. Our community college that is local to us is Delaware County Community College. We know that they have 1- and 2-year programs. So we can see from a certificate to an associate's degree. It varies on the amount of classes and credits that students earn. These programs, typically an associate's degree, can be transferred to a 4-year college. So I'm just going to use a DCCC and a Westchester as an example. We know that there are agreements. Those credits will, from the associate's degree, can speak right to, transferring over into a bachelor's degree if that's what a student wishes to do. If they wish to end with the associates and move on to the workforce, that's absolutely great as well. Trade school, we are lucky enough to have a fabulous trade school pretty much in our backyard, Williamson. So Williamson, Thaddeus Stevens, Penn College of Technology, their admissions processes are a little bit different than a traditional college. However, they within themselves of a trade school all vary as well. So Williamson is now test-free. However, they rely heavily on the application, letters of recommendation, of course, a student's transcript, their interview, and their applicant day. So those are all important components. If you have a student that is interested in looking at Williamson, definitely want to get that ball rolling now, just to be aware of all of the requirements for that particular application. Thaddeus Stevens is another great technical school that we send our students to. There is a placement test for Thaddeus that once a student is applying and in communications with an admissions counselor, they will be able to set up an admissions test to make sure that the students are being placed correctly in their classes. We also have the military and workforce, which we love only because, we need skilled workers. And that is why that we, want to prepare our students to be able to go into multiple pathways, essentially, after they graduate. The military, well, it does require the ASVAB exam. We do offer the ASVAB exam at Sun Valley 2 times per year for free. So the next available test that we have will be April 3rd. And that usually comes out about a month or so ahead of time in terms of a Google form for the students to sign up. So that will be a reminder to parents, but it will be primarily, emailed and messaged out to the students and placed in their Schoology group. So they will sign up through a Google form, and then we, as the counseling team, will facilitate that exam. We do not have a fall test. However, just, look out for your email and the school calendar a little closer to next school year, which, speaking of January, right now sounds ridiculous, but we're moving right along. An AFQT score of 31 or higher will qualify a student for military enlistment. And this was also mentioned in the Act 158 conversation. So this ASVAB exam is definitely a good test, especially because it's free for students to take if they're looking at either the military or they don't know what they want to do yet. It is a good back pocket type of exam to have. That way, if they do make different choices, their senior year or, late in their senior year, they at least have something, checked off already. An apprenticeship. This is a great learn while you earn type of approach for the students that might not love the traditional classroom setting and they see benefit or value in working while they're learning. It is definitely a great way for our students to, again, kind of catapult into that workforce, but also earning money while they're doing so. So again, back to that high school diploma, which speaks to grades, all of that good stuff. Students do not need a prior knowledge of that specific trade if they're accepted into the apprenticeship, which is great because not every 17 or 18-year-old might know all of the skills and trades in the trades. There usually is an application and or a testing requirement. And sometimes the dates are, they're not as just can't join the apprenticeship every month. So we want students to be able to look at their resources, which the PA career link is also listed in the presentation, will be a helpful resource for students and families to look at if this is a potential route for your student. And again, if this is their potential route, we are here to help facilitate those conversations. We will be hosting a college and career fair next fall. So that's something that we want our students and families to be on the lookout for as well. Okay, standardized testing, the biggie. So as we see on the chart that has both the SAT and the ACT exam, the SAT has now been digital, and our students have been taking a PSAT. So if your current student is a junior, they took the PSAT last year and this year on their Chromebook. So this is not something that should be completely foreign to them. There is no more essay, and that SAT is through collegeboard.org. So again, that PSAT, the SAT exam, and if your student is enrolled in AP classes, then you are familiar with the College Board. ACT is a different exam and a different entity. There are some changes starting the spring of 2025. So you can see if you have older students that have been through this before, there are some changes. So it's a little bit of a different timing. The essay is optional. There is also an optional science component, where in years past that science component was part of the exam. The scoring is also different. So again, the PSAT to the SAT, there's a little bit of a different scale, but as you see, there's a drastic difference in a raw score, of 1 to 36 compared to a score of 400 to 1600 on the SAT. And the question amount has changed for the spring of 2025 ACT exam. And that decreased by about 40 questions, but all new changes. On the right-hand side, you can see the upcoming test dates. Some are held at Sun Valley, some are not. We highly recommend, if you have a conflict with something that is with a test that is held at Sun Valley, that you get onto College Board or ACT.org, and schedule a test at a nearby location. With test centers, sometimes it can get tricky, and we want our students to feel as comfortable as possible. So if you have to drive an hour, which it has happened for a particular test date, we want our students to feel as comfortable as possible, and driving an hour might not warrant that. So we do like to mention at least taking one of the exams in the spring of their junior year to see maybe a baseline or where the students, lay in their score, and then see what they can do over the summertime in terms of test preparation, or looking at what they, got right, got wrong, and how can they apply that to improve their score, and then take it in the fall again. There are schools, and we'll talk about it a little further on in the presentation. There are schools that are still test optional, but we highly recommend students still taking an exam, because this might benefit you in that scholarship arena. So, we're always looking for more dollars. So taking a test, and getting a score that the college is attracted to might give you more money as a student and family, during that application and financial aid process. There are fee waivers through both entities. So if you are a student or a family that qualifies for free and reduced lunch, please reach out to your counselor, and we can provide you with those fee waivers. Something that I do like to mention, that, through the application cycle, and again, you'll hear this many, many times from now until next fall. Please be mindful of your test dates and the type of applications that you will be submitting. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but anything that is early action or early decision, we want to make sure that you're getting that test date in by the 13th of September or October 4th, just because those deadlines for those early applications are typically November 1st. And we don't want you, in a place of scrambling for an exam if it's needed, and stressing out. The application cycle is stressful enough, and we want to make sure that you have ample time to prepare and plan. With that said, there is a concordance table that will allow you to see your SAT scores in comparison to, an ACT score, or what you should get in terms of that, previous score. Like we said, we want you to take at least one of the exams and then move forward with reviewing. We say take one of each, but we do know that there's a financial component to that. So as a student or a family, you can do your research through practice tests and see maybe where you have more strengths over the weaknesses. In a couple slides, we'll talk about the Blue Book app, which helps students prepare for the SAT. There are Khan Academy, which is also a free resource for students. There's ACT Prep through Kaplan, which costs money. As you see from our presentation, there's $ next to a few of these things. And then on our website, we have a much more in-depth junior planning guide. It's about 30 pages of information. There are many resources in there if you are looking for an at-cost study materials for your student. And here is an example of the Blue Book app, which was something new last year for our students. So the digital world is here and here to stay. So the Blue Book app is an app that the students can download, and it is free SAT prep. As you can see from the arrows on the screen, we would like our students to practice a full-length practice test. However, you can stop and start the exam. So if a student is practicing, or if they have a couple minutes of downtime and they want to get a couple questions in, they don't have to commit to a 2-hour exam each time they want to practice. So, at this point in a student's junior year career, we want them to practice an SAT. We don't need them to practice a PSAT material. And then, they can move through some questions. On the next slide, we will see that if a student is currently approved for accommodations through College Board, which is a process, through the school, so that way we're aware of it. The student can have the built-in accommodations on their practice test, which is a nice feature so that the students are mimicking what either their PSAT exam was like or what their future SAT exam will be like. Again, we know that sometimes it can be stressful, and we want to mimic the best possible practice environment. Again, this is not for every student. Accommodations and supports are for those that have approved accommodations through College Board. And as you can see on the left-hand side, some of those things would be extra breaks, extended time, breaks as needed, things like that. Again, on the right-hand side of this little chart, the yellow arrow is pointing to the SAT practice number 1. Our students don't need to worry about the SAT essay practice. The essay is not a requirement anymore. So we just want our students to practice the typical SAT questions that they're going to, be seeing on the actual test. The nice part about the app is, as well, is that they will get information based on the questions they answered correctly and incorrectly, and learn the answer, learn what they did wrong, and learn how to continue to move forward in doing what was right. So we want our students to definitely take advantage of this. And again, it does not have to be a full commitment to a test. So if they have a couple minutes, they're waiting at a doctor's appointment or they're in the car, definitely take advantage of that, so that they have a real life kind of example of what they might score on the exam. I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. M.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to talk about a website. It is called fairtest.org. It's a wonderful resource that has culminating 2,100 colleges that are test optional, meaning they will accept an SAT score, but they don't require it. And then there are 85 or more colleges that are considered test-free. Test-free means they do not look at test scores as part of their admission process. So if you submit them, they will not look at them. You can see a few of the colleges on the screen here that are test optional, and a few that have a star after them are test-free. If you go to the website at fairtest.org, you can filter by state. You can filter by the academic year that the college has approved test-free and test optional for. Some colleges are permanently test optional, and others are still taking it a year at a time since COVID to determine if they will reinstitute test scores or not. One thing to know about applying test optional versus possibly using a test score is if your student takes the SAT or ACT and they get their score back, a lot of students don't know, okay, do I use my score or do I not? The best thing to do is to have the student go on the college's website and do some research and find out what is the middle 50% range for their SAT scores or their ACT scores. If a student's score falls within the middle of that range, then we would recommend that, yes, you are in a good spot to submit your test score. If your test score is lower than their range, then we do not recommend a student would use the score for that college because it would be, just kind of another reason for the college to maybe kind of ding the student on their application. So being test optional, a college cannot penalize a student if they do not want to submit their score. However, if their score is within the range or in the high range, it could really help them, as Ms. Foster mentioned earlier, with potentially getting scholarships and things of that nature. So check out this website. It is very helpful, and it will probably be updated a little bit more in the spring, especially for the colleges that are right now only approved through the class of 2025. So take a look and keep an eye on that website. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about applying to a range of schools. So as you can see, we have 3 different categories. So REACH schools are colleges where the GPA requirements and the test score averages are higher than what the student's profile is. So as it's called, it's a REACH, right? It's a REACH to try to get into that school. We suggest students apply, if they're going to apply to some REACH schools, about 1 to 3 on average. The bulk of their application should be to target schools. Target schools are where the GPA and the test score average is about the same as the student's profile. So that student meets the college requirements for that college to gain admission, looking at about 3 to 4 schools in the target range. And then the likely colleges is where the GPA or test score is lower than the student's profile. So the student would exceed the college requirements. They're overly qualified for that college. And we do like to have students apply to some likely schools, just kind of as a safety, just in case. So while we can't say they are likely to get in, they are overqualified based on what the school is averaging as their GPA and test score. At the bottom there, you can see some important notes. So you can find out from the college's website, or you can Google, say, University of Pittsburgh Common Data Set, and you will get a document that you can review, which will provide you information on the GPA ranges and the test score ranges from the last admitted class. So I highly recommend that students do their research and really try to find out what have been the GPA ranges, what are the test score ranges, so they can know if they should use their test scores or not, and which category those colleges are falling into for them. Are they a REACH, are they a target, or are they a likely? And then just at the bottom there, it says, in recent years, the admissions process has become a little bit more competitive because of test optional policies, causing some reduced admission rates. So students are, applying to a lot of schools and applying sometimes test optional. And so it's become a little bit more competitive of a field than it has been in the past. So we want to make sure that students are balancing their list and making sure that they aren't applying to, more reaches than targets. We want students to be able to have a balanced list. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help them also make a balanced list in the junior year going into senior year. Okay. Ms. Martin is going to jump in right here and explain Naviance and how you can use it.
Thank you, Mrs. M. Hello, everyone. I'm Madeline Martin. I'm new here to start on January 2nd, so excited to be with the Sun Valley family. So Naviance is a great resource for students. I'm actually going to exit out of the PowerPoint and show you it, so we get a quick little overview. I'm going to have to log back in to our student. So we're going to be using a fake student today. His name's Adam. Let me just get the password in. Sorry about that. Okay. That's it. Here we go. So when your student logs into Naviance, this is what their page will look like. And we will be sending out an email to you parents and guardians so you can have access to a parent account to use as well. But just to give you a little overview of Naviance and how it's kind of working. So right now, I am in a fake account, so there's no real student information to be disclosed, just a little side note there. But as right here, we have the welcome to Naviance. You have your counselors listed. So Miss Judge, she was the previous counselor. I am now for her. So if you do have had Miss Judge, you have me now. So we will get that adjusted. But just a little side note. As Dr. James mentioned before, the state does have career educational work CEW requirements, which we keep track through on Naviance. So down here at tasks from my school, students can see what artifacts they've completed through the checks marks. So by the end of the junior year, we hope that they have 8 completed. That's the goal here. So if we scroll down a little bit further, we have the what's new section. If a student is interested in meeting with a representative, all they have to do is very simple. So I'll show you. So example, University of South Carolina is coming. I click on more info. Really easy. The student, if they want to go, click on register and they're good to go. If I go back, so that's very easy. We also have it running on our screen so students are aware. If we scroll down a little bit further, if the students have already started working on colleges I'm thinking about, it's kind of nice. Naviance organizes it in a way that they can see it and kind of keep track of what they need to get going on. Also, many of our students have taken career assessments, so they can view their essential skills right down here. We have career essentials based on the assessments they took. So it's kind of a good, just a tool to use to see what they could improve upon. Today, we're going to be focusing on the college section. So as I said, Naviance has a wonderful array of tools. Today, we're going to be doing something called the Advanced College Search down here. And then we will be selecting through a variety of criteria. So I will go through this kind of quickly for today's purpose, just so you can see it. And then you're welcome to go into your own account and try these tools. So for today, we're going to say we're going to a 4-year school. We're going to keep it open to no preference for public or private, as Ms. Foster mentioned the difference between those. Say I'm a student who wants to be in the city, so I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to move on to location. For today, I'm going to be like within an hour of Aston, Pennsylvania. So I don't really care about the regions. If you do the more specific you get, sometimes it can make your criteria very selective, so you don't have a lot of offerings. So it's sometimes helpful the first time that you do this just to keep it very broad. So if I keep moving on to make sure we have everything selected. Yep. Then we can keep going to students. In this section, say if your student's looking for a medium to large school, I would say that would be between 5 to 10,000 range. If there was a certain minority backgrounds they wanted, or out of state, they have male, female. So you can select the criteria that you're looking. I'm going to keep everything pretty open just for today. Under the admissions, we ask that our students kind of keep it to no preference at this point. So what that means, like less than 25%, those are very selective schools. So any IB school, any like top school you can think of are in that 25%. So at this point, we just want to keep it open to everything. Under the athletics, so if you are a school athlete right now and you are interested in playing in college, you should select the division that you're interested in. So division 1, 2, 3. If you're interested in NCAA, what division your association, and then if you scroll to the sports, this is just a little side note. Whatever sport you're interested in, make sure you scroll all the way to the bottom and click that done button. And that secures that sport, so it will come up in your preferences. I'm just going to keep this general. And then majors is a nice little spot So you can type in the major you're looking. So I'm going to say we're interested in business. Click go. Maybe I'm in just do want to do maybe we'll select add selected. And then you can also, there's just so many different majors you could add in. So we'll add a couple selected in there. And then cost. So a little note with the costs again, as Ms. Foster mentioned, scholarships and state and in-state can adjust these things. So as I mentioned, the first time you do it, I would just keep it broad in this section and just say no preference. And then special programs, these are if your child's interested in ROTC programs, if there's any specific clubs or organizations they really want, say they want jazz band or they're hoping for theater or drama, they can select those things. So say maybe I want to make sure there's a business club on there, so I will select that. And at the event, and I'll say I'm done, view matches. And right now I'll have one match, which kind of defeats today's purpose at this point, but it's okay. So St. Joseph University is a great school. So we'll select, I'll just show you a little quick overview of St. Joe's as well, just how Naviance works. But Naviance is really helpful. It does house over 13,000 schools. So today it's just showing me one, but don't worry, it's just because I think I selected how I did my clubs a major. But anywho, so any school, most of the schools have pictures and a nice overview when you get on to the first page. It generally provides you the school information as well as their average net price, so you can kind of guesstimate there, and then graduation rate, you can see the acceptance rate. So it's kind of nice in that sense of getting to know the college. You can also see if you scroll down more of their GPA requirements, where they might be fitting and looking for their students. So I'll just go back up here again. Under the study, this section, this will give you a nice student faculty ratio. So 11:1, so 11 students for one teacher. So if you're looking for a student who wants more of that individualized one-on-one attention, you want to look for a more of that student faculty ratio that's a little smaller. You can also see, you can get to know the faculty. There's some other, then there's also programs down below. So they have that business program that I was interested in. And then they also list all the other majors that the school has. So just that's under the study, as well as you continue scrolling down, it can show you what programs they have. They have study abroad, just some more data. So very helpful when you are using this tool. Under student life, this is like the section where you want to get the community feel if this school is good for you. And when you are going to school, you're not just looking, yes, academics is number one, I guarantee, but you also want to see, make sure that community, that environment, it's right for your student and fits to your family's needs. So if we click under the admissions tab, just a little overview here, we can see deadlines usually coming up, their policies. This is the scattergram from applications from Sun Valley for St. Joe's. So the check marks mean they've been accepted, and they can also show their SATs and GPA. So this is a really helpful tool I recommend students use just to get an idea of where they might need to be. And then this is the cumulative data from over a couple of years. So check out the application information. Good spot to just continue going through requirements, what they might need, and the recommended courses, application factors. So just a lot of good tools in that one. And then again, the last is the cost. You can see the annual tuition, but again, as Ms. Foster mentioned, along with merit scholarships and financial aid, that net price can definitely change. So just be mindful on that. So just a lot of great tools and information in this section. So I also just want to, under the spotlight section, we're almost at a Naviance, and I'll move on to our next area. This can also give you some, there's usually a lot of more students that list that have interviews and the student testimonials. So once you're in, if you're interested in, you want to do this college, you can do a little heart, and that will take you to, oh, great news. So you can connect there. And if you go to the colleges, what I'm thinking about, St. Joe's actually will pop up somewhere. Oh, there he is. So that will pop up for me, and it's at CA. That means it's common application. So when we are doing applications, the common app, which is a lot of schools use the common application, that will say CA on Naviance, and if it uses a different application, it will be blank. So just a couple of things to note. But overall, Naviance is a great tool to just get your list built, get things organized. There's a lot of just good tools. There's quizzes to take. There's career assessments to do. So just take advantage when you get a chance, and work with this with your student, and mess around with as many times as you can, because a lot of cool schools can pop up. I'm going to move back to the slideshow. Hopefully this will work again. All right. So I will move it back to Mrs. M. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Common App that Ms. Martin mentioned in Naviance. So the Common App is kind of like the one-stop shop of applications, because over 1,000 colleges and universities do accept the Common App. So what this means is the students filling out their demographic information one time and then adding different colleges to the application. And once they submit their application to each college, all that information will get sent to the colleges that use the Common App. And so it consolidates, just having to do it in one website in one place. So we do recommend that students make a Common App account, especially if they are planning to apply to several colleges. There are essay prompts, and as we mentioned earlier, that our teachers in English will be helping our students get started on their essay in the Common App. There are 7 different prompts, and students only need to pick one of the 7. The last prompt is open-ended. It's write about whatever you want. So, there are prompts that help give students ideas of what to write about, but they also have the freedom to write about, a topic of their choice. We do have, again, fee waivers available. So if a student is on free and reduced lunch, when they fill out the Common App, there is a question on the actual application that asks them if they are requesting a fee waiver. So if a student has free or reduced lunch, they can click yes. And when they connect their Common App account to their Naviance account, which we will show students how to do that in the fall of their senior year, we will then get alerted that they're requesting a fee waiver, and we can approve it provided they're on the free and reduced lunch program. The application opens August 1st. However, students could make an account in the summer and only fill out the demographic information, and it will save. They do not want to fill out the information for each specific college, because once Common App does their revisions, come August 1st, all that college-specific data will be wiped out. So they can put in their demographic information, such as their name and their address, their parents' information, but that's the only tab in the Common App that could be filled out before August 1st. Again, we will offer application help at Sun Valley High School in August. And once we have those dates solidified, we will email them out to students and families. And we want seniors to come in and get a jump start on their applications in August. It takes a lot of pressure off, having gotten most of that done in the summer before school starts in September. Okay, I'm going to go over different application types because there are a lot and they can be a bit confusing. So first, we're going to start with early decision. So early decision is a binding application, which means that if a student applies early decision, you are signing a contract with the college indicating that you understand that you want to go to this college, and if you are admitted to this college, that you are committing to go there. The challenge with this is you will not have seen a financial aid package quite yet. So you're agreeing that you want to go to this college, basically, no matter if you pay full price or if you don't pay full price. So this is really only something a family should consider if they are financially comfortable paying a full price tuition. Students can only apply to one early decision school. You may not apply to more than one. That is a rule. Those deadlines for the application is either going to be November 1st or November 15th for an early decision 1 round. They do have early decision 2 rounds. So that would apply if a student, say, applied early decision to Villanova and they did not get accepted to Villanova early decision 1. A student could then decide a different college that they might want to apply to for early decision 2. Again, you can only apply to one school at a time if you are doing it as early decision. And again, it is financially binding, so we want to make sure students and families really understand that ED is only the way to go if the financial means are secured on your end. Early action is probably one of the most popular. It is not binding. The due dates are similar to an early decision. You'd be applying by November 1st or November 15th, and you would be finding out earlier. Most colleges would release those decisions in December. However, some release their decisions in January. So it really just depends on the college. But again, it is not binding. Students do not need to leave a deposit for the college that they want to go to until May 1st if they apply through early action. Okay, we're going to move on to REA, which means restricted early action. This is not binding either. It is typically due around November 1st or November 15th. These institutions do have a lot of conditions. So if they have an REA application type, you do want to read the fine print. But typically, you cannot apply to another private institution through ED or EA or another REA college or any other binding type of program through a public institution. So again, you want to just be real careful if you are applying to an REA that you're understanding all the terms and conditions in relation to the other colleges that you are also going to be applying to. Regular decision is not binding either, and the due dates are a little bit later. The due dates are either January 1st or January 15th. Students are typically finding out in March, early April at the latest, about admissions decisions for regular decision. And then rolling admission is the type of application where the college is evaluating it based on when the student submits the application. So University of Pittsburgh, for example, is a rolling admissions college. If you apply in September to University of Pittsburgh, you will likely have a response back to them by mid to end of October, letting you know if you got in. Applying rolling admission, we recommend that students apply early in the school year because it's always nice to hear back and get one acceptance under your belt early in the school year. So if you have colleges that you're looking at that are rolling admission, we recommend you apply to them very shortly after we get back into the school year and get that submitted. And I'm going to pass it to Ms. Schneider.
Thank you, Mrs. Sim. All right. Now we're going to look ahead at fall of senior year. And there are some things for students to do, which you can see here in this to-do list. Students will want to have their list of schools narrowed down, and we recommend somewhere between 4 and 8 schools on the list. Fall of senior year, students will also continue to work on their applications, but we do recommend they get a jump start in August when the Common App opens, like Mrs. Zim had said. It's also important that students keep track and are aware of their deadlines for applications. We can't keep track of all students and when things are due, so they really need to be organized with when their deadlines are happening so that they're making sure that everything's being turned in on time. If they do miss like an early action deadline, then they could be pushed back to like the regular round for decisions for certain colleges. For letters of recommendation, many colleges take letters of recommendation from teachers. And if a student is looking for a teacher to write them a letter of recommendation, we do suggest that they speak to the teacher in person first to make sure that they are willing to write that letter for them. We typically advise that they should look at a core class teacher from 11th grade because these teachers know the student best and who they are presently. Students really don't want to go back to their ninth grade teachers just because it's been, so long since they've had that teacher. So really, they should focus on an English, math, science, social studies, or world language teacher from their 11th grade year. Also, students will need to allow at least 2 weeks for that letter to be written and submitted and sent out through our Naviance system. If students would like to speak to a teacher prior to leaving for the summer in June, that's fine too. And probably recommended since they can help that their letter will be written by the early fall when they'll need it. Students should also definitely schedule time to meet with their school counselor come the beginning of fall senior year so that we can be aware of the colleges that they're applying to, deadlines, helping them request transcripts and making sure they have everything in order. And we also might have to write them a counselor letter of recommendation. Many colleges want the teacher letter of recommendation first, but also require us to submit a letter as well. We do ask that we have that same timeline of at least 2 weeks to upload the letter and submit it. There is in Naviance a survey for letters of recommendation that we do have students typically fill out, like I think Dr. James mentioned, so that we can get as much information about the student as possible in case we don't know something, so we can write the best letter for them. Also, continuing the fall of senior year, the students are able to go out and go to colleges and other post-secondary visits. There are a number of open houses that happen in the fall, and students and families, may want to attend them to gather more information, or it might be a good time for them to get a second look at a school in case they might be considering it. We highly recommend that you keep an eye on the college websites for when the open houses are. Students do get 2 more days that are excused absences so they can go out and visit the schools. There is a form that they should pick up in the counseling office prior to them going out on the visits in order for them to request permission. So they definitely want to make sure they pick that up. And lastly, if a student's going to take the SAT or ACT again, they would do that in the fall as well. And I think like Ms. Foster mentioned, we definitely need to do it, or the student needs to make sure that they're taking the SAT or the ACT in the August, September, or early October dates so that their SAT scores are back for those November 1st deadlines. All right, for the parents' to-do list now. So first, the FAFSA will open October 1st for students in their senior year. Delaware County Community College typically hosts a FAFSA completion night if parents do want some assistance. If and when we find out a date for that, we will be sure to email it out to parents. The FAFSA has been made to be easier to complete, but help is available through a lot of our community agencies should any family need that extra support. Another financial aid requirement for a lot of the private colleges is the CSS profile. This is a little bit more of an in-depth financial aid questionnaire for parents, asking different types of questions than what you would see on the FAFSA. They might ask about maybe how much money you have in retirement or more about assets and things like that. If students are using the Common Application, it will indicate an outline on there that they will need to complete the CSS profile as well. So there may be 2 financial aid applications that need to be completed depending on the schools that they are applying to. We also, in the fall of senior year, we hold a financial aid night in order to help families get an update on the FAFSA and any other financial information. So once we have that date as well, we will send it out and share it with all the families so that they can attend. Like Dr. James, I think, mentioned earlier, the Federal Student Aid Estimator is a great way for families at this point to see what the need will be for college. So if you go to studentaid.gov, you can complete the Federal Student Aid Estimator now and be able to get an idea of how much aid your family would qualify for college. And lastly, for a parent to do is to go with their child to those post-secondary visits in the fall and those open houses that might be happening as well. Okay, now on to scholarships. Most scholarship money that students are awarded comes directly from the institution themselves, whether it be a merit-based scholarship or need-based scholarship or an athletic scholarship. Those are 3 different types of scholarships that colleges offer to students. If students are looking for scholarships outside of the institution, we do try to post it everywhere for the students to see. Naviance is also a great place for students to be able to look up scholarships, including national scholarships and other local scholarships. We also use Schoology in our college and career course. There's a folder in there for scholarships that all the junior students are a part of. And if students click into that folder, they'll be able to view any current scholarships out there that are available for students to apply to. On our counseling website, we do have a long list of national scholarships, and students can create like a username and login. Students will be asked questions about things like maybe their intended major and things like that to give them more specific scholarships that would fit their own interest needs and everything. Then in the springtime of senior year, Mrs. Garrett, our counseling secretary, does also email out to students a scholarship application that is strictly for Sun Valley students. In order to be considered for these scholarships, students will need to complete the Google form that is sent out by her. This last tip here is a good one, especially if you're looking at some of the national scholarship websites, because your email inbox will get jam-packed with information. So we highly suggest that students create a new email to use only for scholarship searches. That way they can keep their personal email separate from the scholarships information that might be coming through. Junior planning meetings are going to be available after tonight's webinar. So counselors will be starting to meet with students individually, and parents are welcome to attend as well. We want to be able to sit down more one-on-one with each junior and be able to plan a more in-depth of what their path is, what their plans are for after graduation, and what they need to be doing between now, the spring, the summer, and in the fall to make sure that they achieve what their future plans are. We can meet with parents on Zoom and the student in person as well. We want to make sure that we are as accommodating with parents' work schedules and everything. The meetings are held during the school day. So if you're interested in setting up a meeting, we do ask you to email Mrs. Scarrett or call. Her information is there on the screen for you. She will get an appointment for you on our calendar, and we can get that meeting set up. The student will then also be sent a Google form from Mrs. Garrett so that we can get a better idea before the meeting what your student is thinking about for post-secondary plans, so that it can help us guide the meeting a little bit better. Also linked here in the presentation is the post-secondary planning guide that was mentioned. The presentation tonight will be sent out as well as posted on our counseling website under post-secondary planning under the juniors tab. So you'll be able to find this with all the hyperlinks. Next week, we will also be going into all the junior classrooms to review with students again about using Naviance and doing college searches. And we'll be repeating a lot of the information of what we went over with all of you here today. So I think that concludes our presentation for tonight. The counselors will stay here for another couple of minutes. In case anyone has any questions, feel free to type any questions into the Q&A box at the bottom so we can answer those. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us tonight, and please feel free to make our meeting with your counselor.
There was a question in the Q&A about college visits and how many a junior would be able to take. So the answer to that question is 2. And again, just want to reiterate that if a student is deciding to go on a college visit, you want to make sure you pick up a field trip form, have that filled out by all the teachers, and then submitted into the attendance office before you do the visit. Thought that was for the good of the group.
There was a question about Naviance, so love that. I'm not sure, as you are anonymous, if it is a student or a parent. So hopefully it is a parent, because our students have been accessing that. So the students do have Naviance. It is an application within their Google suite. So we call it the Google Waffle. their 9 dots, they are able to access that. From a parent perspective, you will actually be, as a follow-up to our presentation within the next couple of weeks, maybe days, you will be provided an access code to make sure that you have an Naviance account that you can access from a parent or a guardian perspective, and log in from there. We do recommend that our students are guiding their parents and guardians through their Naviance account too. That way, the lists that they're creating or have created thus far are viewable to you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions in the Q&A box.
Yep.
Thanks again, everyone, for coming.